All right, let's unpack this. If you're staring down the barrel of something like the ATPL theory exams, well, you know the feeling, right?
Yeah.
It's like trying to drink from a fire hose. Just so much material, different systems, airframes, nav, and definitely meteorology. It can feel, well, completely overwhelming sometimes.
Totally. It's a huge amount to take in.
Wouldn't it be great to have like a guide, someone to help you sort of navigate through that stack of source material and just zero in on the absolute core of a complex topic?
Well, that's exactly what we're trying to do with this deep dive. We've taken a good look at your source material, really focusing specifically on understanding atmospheric depressions and, all the related weather phenomena mentioned in those pages.
Exactly. And we're not just going to glance over the standard polar front depression here. I mean, understanding those is definitely foundational. You need that baseline. But your sources actually dive into this whole fascinating spectrum of these systems. You've got thermal lows, those incredibly powerful tropical revolving storms, the tricky secondary depressions.
Right. And depressions caused by mountains or orographic ones, and even those sort of local whirls like tornadoes, and the less obvious things like cold air pools.
So the mission here, our goal, is to really extract the most important nuggets. The key insights, the specific definitions, the conditions, all those little details straight from your sources.
The idea is to help you feel confident, feel prepared when you're tackling those questions about this really diverse range of low-pressure systems, especially the tricky ones.
Yeah, those ones that maybe aren't the standard mid-latitude low. So settle in. Get ready to take a deep dive into the spectrum of atmospheric depressions, and we're using your sources as our map.
And I think the best place to start is by laying the foundation, sort of the basic building blocks that your source materials actually begin with when they discuss many of these systems.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack those building blocks first. Because your source materials, they introduce them quite clearly as, well, essential concepts. We're talking about air masses and fronts here. So think of air masses as just these vast bodies of air. They can cover thousands of square miles potentially, and they have pretty uniform characteristics throughout temperature, moisture, that kind of thing.
Yeah, like a huge bubble of, say, cold, dry air that's just been sitting over a continent in winter. Or maybe a big humid chunk of air that's been parked over a warm ocean for a while.
Right. And crucially, when these different air masses meet, like, say, a cold, dense one bumps up against a warm, less dense air mass, they don't really mix easily, do they?
No, not at all. Because their densities are different, they tend to stay pretty separate. And this boundary surface, or maybe boundary zone is a better term, where these two air masses meet, well, that's what we call a front.
Okay.
And your source specifically describes three main types: warm fronts, cold fronts, and occluded fronts.
Right, and understanding what the source actually says about these is really key because they're intrinsically linked to how some of the depressions we'll discuss later, particularly those secondary ones, how they form and move. So first up, the warm front.
Okay.
This is where warmer air is actively moving into an area that's currently occupied by colder air. On a standard weather chart, your source shows this marked with red lines and these little red semicircles pointing in the direction the front is moving.
And one really key characteristic that your source highlights for a warm front is its slope. It's all about the slope. As the warmer, less dense air advances, it kind of rides up over the colder, denser air ahead of it.
Gently does it, though.
Very gently, yeah. It does this very gradually along a really shallow slope. The source actually specifies this slope. It's typically about 1 unit vertical for every 150 units horizontal. So 1.15.
Wow, that's shallow.
It is. And that shallow slope means that the frontal boundary itself extends over a really long distance on the ground. It spreads the weather associated with it over something like 600 to 700 nautical miles ahead of the actual surface front position.
600 or 700 miles, that's huge. And how quickly does this warm front typically advance? What does the source say?
Your source says a warm front generally moves at about 1/3 the speed of the wind at 2,000 feet.
Okay, 2,000 feet.
All right. Many thanks for listening to this free part of the ATPL Theory podcast. If you want to continue learning and access the full comprehensive guide, go to my Patreon at patreon.com/ATPLtheory or my Hero at herohero.co/ATPL. That is patreon.com/ATPLtheory or herohero.co/ATPL. Wishing you all the best.